Katrina hit New Orleans last year, people were starving. They had no water. They were dying, and they did die. Many of them died. Why? Because they were dependent on other people. And I believe that can be a problem because we depend on other people. We're not depending on God. When you're a nomad out in the wilderness, you're completely 100% dependent upon God for rain, for food, for pastures, for your livestock. So that's why God had to bring them into the wilderness so that they could learn who He was. He couldn't do it in Ur, and He couldn't do it in Egypt. Okay, the ancient Hebrew nomads were self-sufficient and self-governing. Abraham and his children and all the other nomads, they're self-sufficient and they're self-governing. They did not rely on anybody else. They were tribal families. They were an entity among themselves. Abraham's camp was not just him, his wife, and a couple of kids and a couple of servants. He had hundreds in his camp. When Lot was taken by the 5 kings and their armies, he got 318, I think it was, of his trained men and went after him. By the way, 5 kings and their armies took Lot, and let's estimate 500 people per army. That's being really conservative because each city had its own king in Canaan at that time. Okay, let's say that each king could bring up 500 people. 2,500 men in this army that took Lot. And Abraham went after him with 318 men. 318, 2,500. And Abraham won. That's pretty amazing. We don't think too much of Abraham being a warrior, but he and his men were definitely warriors. Okay, the letter Bet, the second letter, that's actually the picture of a nomadic tent. If you see the line in the lines on the outside, that's the outline of the tent. There's an opening up at the top left. That's the entrance into the men's section of the tent. And then there's a wall in the middle dividing it in two. The men's section is on the left. The women's section is on the right there. It's actually a picture of a Hebrew's nomadic tent. And the letter Bet, the word Bet is a Hebrew word, and the word Bet means house. And the Bet is a picture of a house. All right, let's take a look at how much the language is related to their culture. We're going to take a look at a few Hebrew words. The first one is the word Sa. This is a parent root. It's 2 letters, Sade and Aleph. And this parent root means to migrate. And that's what nomads do. They migrate from one location to another. Okay, a very common word in the biblical text is Yatsa. Yatsa. This is derived from Sa. And here is one case where this word is used. Shemot 20 verse 2, that's Exodus 20 verse 2. I am Yahweh your God who migrated you out, which usually translates brought you out, of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Here we have Yahweh is going to be taking Israel out of Egypt. It's not just bringing them out, He's migrating them. He's bringing them on a journey, a nomadic journey. This is our first clue that He's taking them on a nomadic journey. So we got the word Sa. The next one we're going to look at is the word Tzav. This is also 2 letters. It's Tzadi Vav. These both have the Tzadi, and then this one has the Tzadi Vav. We have the word Sav. This means direction. From the word Sav, from the parent root Sav, we get the child root, Sava. Sava. This is a verb that means to direct somebody. Okay, to give directions. Now, here's one case where this word is used, this verb. This is a verb. Devarim, that's Deuteronomy 1:19. And we set out from Horeb as Yahweh our God directed us. Now, this is usually translated as commanded. But command doesn't really convey what the Hebrew. The Hebrew is simply to give directions. God said, I command you to do this. Well, He's really saying, I'm directing you. I'm giving you directions in your life. That is what the commands are, which, by the way, is our next word. This is the noun that's derived from that. Mitzvah. Mitzvah is derived from Tzava, which comes from Tzav. Okay, Hebrew is it's a root-oriented language. In English, we're used to each word being an independent entity to itself. But in Hebrew, all words that come from the same root are all related to each other. And so it's important to understand that all of these words that come from the same root are related. And it better helps to understand the language better if you understand that. Now, mitzvah is translated as a command or commandment, but literally it's the directions. It's the directions. Now, let's take a look at a verse that uses that and read it from a Hebraic perspective, Devarim, Deuteronomy 6:25, and it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to do all this direction before Yahweh our God. He's giving us directions. That's what the Torah is. They're directions for our life, the directions we're supposed to go. Let's take a look at another word. Now this is the word see. Also begins with a tzadi, and then it's a yod. Now the first one was tzadi aleph. The second one's tzadi vav. This one's tzadi yod. Now the aleph, vav, and the yod in the ancient Hebrew were all vowels. They were consonants and vowels. So these are all very closely related. Okay, we're going to kind of summarize all of these together to show their connections. Okay, see. What is see? See is the wilderness. The word see, or the parent root, means wilderness. Here's a case where this word is used. This is out of Psalm 72, verse 9. They that dwell in the wilderness shall bow before him, and his enemies shall lick the dust. There you go, wilderness. Then another word which comes from this is the word Sion. That's a landmark. That's a landmark. And here's a verse where that's used. This one's out of Jeremiah. Set up landmarks for yourself. Make yourself guideposts. Consider well the highway, the road by which you went. Sion is a landmark. What is a landmark? What's the function of a landmark? In our culture, what we do is we're driving down the road and we look for landmarks too. But what are they? They're called road signs. So now notice the connection between all these. We have Tsa, which is a migration. Then we have Tsav, which is directions. And then we have Si, which is the wilderness and its landmarks. Notice how all three of these words are related, not only in the way they're written, they all come from the same roots, but they also have the same general meanings together. So a landmark is that which guides you on your journey. Sion, or Zion, the way it's usually written, as Ron has pointed out, is the same word. It's a landmark. It's like the ultimate landmark. It's the destination, the goal of where we're going. And where is Zion? Zion is the mountain of God. That's where we're headed to. Our word sign also comes from the word Sion. Oh yeah, here's a verse where we have the word Sion again. His abode has been established in Salem, his dwelling place in Sion. Let's take a look at another word for wilderness. And this is the word midvar. Midvar. It comes from the root davar, and davar means, anybody know what davar means? Word or thing. Very good. Excellent. A word. But it means a little bit more than that. The root davar, the word davar means word or thing, but the root means, well, I'll tell you what, before I do that, let's take a look at another word that comes from davar. Devorah. Deborah. What does Devorah mean? Oh, that's right, a bee. Bees. All right, now we've got three words that come from the root davar. We have, well, actually four ideas, really. We have wilderness, we have word, we have a thing, and we have a bee. They all come from the same root, which means they're all related in meaning. They all have the same common meaning. And what is that? What do all of these things have in common? It all deals with order. Let's start with the bee. Okay, a bee colony is a completely, perfectly ordered community. Perfect order in a bee colony. Let's take a look at a word. What is a word? Words are arranged in a specific order to create sentences. Things are placed in boxes or in containers in order to create order. I mean, if you got your kids and they got their toys spewed all over the floor, it's a mess. But they are then taken and put together. All these things are put together, just like words are put together to form an ordered sentence. All the things and the nomads, by the way, didn't have many things. You know, they had a very few worldly possessions, but they always kept them in order. And then the last one is wilderness. Wilderness is a place of perfect order, harmony. What is one of the most common things people do on vacation? Any guesses? What's the most common thing people do when they go on vacation? Put up a tent. Go to the wilderness. Exactly. That's the most common vacation that people do. I shouldn't say the most common, but that's what a lot of people love to do on vacation, go camping. Why? Why do we like to go camping? Because we spend 50 or 51 weeks out of the year in the rat race, cities and in the hustle and the bustle and the fast pace, and we want to get out to where it's peace and quiet and go where it's There's order. Exactly. Perfect order.